We'll start creating our faceplates by going to the project library. I'm going to expand library and go to types, and we'll double click add new type. Now first we need to add some graphics and a pump UDT. So we'll start with graphics, and we're going to call this gray pump. Make sure graphic is selected and then just click OK. And notice that it comes up with this window over telling you that currently you're in the in-work state, and when you finish you either have to release it or discard the changes. So you can just X that out, and we'll go to our toolbox, and under the WinCC graphics folder, we've got quite a few folders here. I'll go under the enhanced meta file and look under pumps, and if you highlight it, it's going to give you all the pumps that you want. So I'm just going to select a pump, and you'll just drag it and drop it on top of the default graphic. And that's really all we have to do here. And if you want to release this version, you just click on the exclamation mark and just click release version. So we'll call it gray pump and click OK. Now there's one other graphic I want to create. We're using a checkmark and an X box to show whether the pump is on or off. So we're going to repeat that and add another type, which is of type graphic. And we're just going to call this pump state. And we'll click OK. And this time we'll go to states, and we'll start with the X. And I'll release that, and we'll call this pump state off and click OK. And then we're going to do that a third time and call this one pump state on, and we'll do the green checkbox and release the version. So now these graphics are available to us when we create a faceplate. There's one other thing I want to create first though, is a UDT for the pump. This will allow us to have a tag that will contain the name of the pump as well as its state, either on or off. We'll use properties to define the colors and the color output of the pump. So we'll do add new type, HMI user data type, and then make sure you choose Unified Comfort Panel. So let's call this pump UDT, and we'll click OK. So under name, this is going to be our pump name, and that's because faceplates don't allow you to have a straight string property, and so we're going to use a tag to do that, and we're going to make the name a W string. And then we're also going to do one called state, which is just either on or off, and of course that's going to be a Boolean data type. So we can click the icon here, release that version, and now we have a pump UDT. So now that we have the graphics and our UDT in place, let's go ahead and create the faceplate itself. So we'll do add new type, and we'll do faceplate, and make sure you choose Unified Comfort Panel, and we'll just do FP for faceplate and just call this color pump and click OK. And we're going to get the same interface here. I'm just going to close this to get it out of the way, and when you do, it reveals these three tabs. So visualization is where we're going to actually draw the user interface for our faceplate. And then the tag interface is where we can assign tag hooks to our faceplate that when we use it back on the screen, we have a place to put our tags. And then we have the property interface, which acts just like properties on your regular object. And here's where we're going to do our colors for the pump. So we'll start with visualization. So if you scroll up, for our size and position, let's try 250 by 225, and we can adjust that if we need to. And we want to add a graphic. Now, you may try to drag things over here, and you can't. The only graphics you can use are the ones that you've pulled into the project library. So we'll just grab our gray pump and place it on the screen, and we can size it some if we want. And we're going to add a few things to this. Under elements, let's add a switch. and that will allow us to turn the pump on and off. And I'll just make this pump a little smaller. And then under basic objects, we're going to add a text box. And then for the text, I'm just going to default pump name. And I want to add a circle here that will show the actual color being put out by the pump. So it's either going to be red, green, or blue, and it's going to be a strength value of 0 to 255. We can't actually change the color of the graphic. So I'm just going to grab a circle, and I'm just going to kind of place it on the pump body. And then we're going to want an I/O field that will allow us to see the value of the color strength for this particular pump. And I'm just going to, for now, just put it kind of right here in the middle. And I'll use my arrow keys to kind of find place it. Now, we've got a couple of properties we know that we're going to want. We're going to want the pump name. We're going to want to know what the output color looks like in terms of color and strength. We're going to know the digital value of the color strength. We're going to want to know if it's on or off. We want to be able to tell if it's turned on or off. So that's where we're going to put our other graphics. So for our pump state off, we'll just grab it and put this here. And I'm going to right click and do arrange, send to back. And then we're going to put the state on right over the top of it. Now, you have to be careful. If you drop it right on top of this, it's going to change the graphic. And that's not what we want. We want both graphics, and I want to hide or show the on based on whether or not the pump is actually on or off. So I'm going to drop it just kind of off, and I'm going to use my arrow keys to kind of place this right over it. And then we'll use our on or off to toggle the visibility of this green checkbox. So if the pump is off, it'll be invisible and you'll see the red X. If it's on, you'll see this. So we have to make sure that this is actually on top of that. So now we need to set up our tag interface and our property interface. So we'll start with our property interface. And the properties that we want are going to be our color strength, which is going to be red, green, or blue, and it's going to be 0 to 255. But primarily it's going to be a red color. So we want to have two colors, one that shows which pump it is, red, green, or blue, and then we want the color strength property. So we'll go to our property interface, and let's call one of these component color. And that's just going to show red, green, or blue just to identify the pump, and it's going to be data type color. And this is new in version 17. And then we're going to call this strength color, and it's going to show the actual shade being put out of that component color based on whatever the value of the red, green, or blue tag is. So now let's go to the tag interface. And we're going to need 3 tag interfaces here, places we can assign tags. So I'm going to do name, which is going to be the name of whatever pump instance, red, green, or blue, and it's going to be a W string. And we will have strength, which is going to be your color strength coming from your parameter set. So red, green, or blue, 0 to 255. That's going to need to be an unsigned integer. The reason it needs to be an unsigned integer is because to this tag interface, we're going to be assigning one of our color interfaces, and those are also unsigned integers. So if you make one an integer and the other one an unsigned integer, you won't be able to browse to that tag and assign it to the property. That's a pro tip. Make sure your data types match up. And then finally, we're going to have state, which is going to be power on or power off. And so of course that is going to be a Boolean. And I'll just hit save and go back to visualization. So now what we want to do is assign the tag interface hooks and your property interface to components on your faceplate so you can make it dynamic. So we've got our component color and strength color. So what I'm going to do is for our circle here, for the background color, I am going to assign a property interface. And the property I want to assign is going to be our strength color. So that's going to be the shade of red or green or blue that happens to be in the current recipe. And also to the border color, just so you have a visual of which color pump you're looking at, I'm going to assign property interface, and that is going to be our component color. And that's always going to be like 255 of red, green, or blue. Sometimes if your recipe has 0 for this, it's going to be black and you wouldn't really be able to visually tell. And then finally, on our foreground color, which is going to be the font of our pump name, I'm also going to assign our component color. So it'll be red, green, or blue. Also on our text box, we want it to look at our pump name tag in our color UDT. So we're going to assign it our name interface. And then to our IO field for our process value, we're going to assign our tag interface. That's going to be our strength, so that's going to show 0 to 255. And then for our switch, we have a couple of things. We need to assign it the tag interface to state, but we also want it to write whatever the new value is when it changes position back to whatever tag we assign it. So the first thing that we do is down here, there's a property called alternative state. So you can see if I turn that on, that is your visual indication that the state has changed. So when you click this or tap it, it's going to toggle. And we want the tag to drive what state it's in. So we're going to do a tag interface here. I'm just going to move this guy over here. And that's going to go to our state tag. So that takes care of the visual interface. And if we go to events, we want to use the status change. Anytime it changes states, we want to write back to the tag. So we'll go into our JavaScript interface. We'll just do tags. And if I hit Control J, it doesn't really give you the interface here. So we're just going to have to write this in. And you want to make sure you get your case right. It's a lowercase s state. I tend to make all my stuff lowercase. And then we want to do write, and this is actually the value that it is changing to. So we want to write that value back into the tag. So that takes care of the user clicking the switch and writing a 1 back to the tag, or if the tag is changed by some other part of the process, then when you go and look at this faceplate, it's going to reflect the value of the tag. Now, one other thing that we can do, there are some texts. There's a text with a pressed button, and then you just have your regular text. The alternative state is actually 1, and so that would be your on position, that would be your off position. So we'll put on here, and we'll put off here. And then finally, our graphics here, we want to show the checkbox if it is in the alternative state, and we don't want to show the checkbox if it's off or in the regular state. And so I'm just kind of moving this up just so you remember that there's a red X under there. So if we turn the visibility of our green checkbox off, then you're going to see the red X. So we'll go to our visibility property, and we'll do tag, and we'll just assign that to state. So if state is a 1, then the visibility is 1, and you'll be able to see the green checkbox. If it's 0, you won't, and you'll see the red X that's behind it. So we're going to save this, and then you have to come up and release the version. Once you release the version, if you make any changes, then it creates a new version. So now that we have our pump faceplate created, let's go add it to our faceplate screen and configure it with some property values and tags and see what we have. So I'll just go click visualization, and let's open up our color tag table. Before we add the pump faceplate to our faceplate screen, we first have to create instances of our color pump UDTs, and we'll just do add new and do red pump UDT. And then for our data type, we will choose our pump UDT. And then I'll repeat this process for the green and blue. And then for each tag, go to the name property, and I'm going to pull up the properties dialog, and in the start value, we're just going to write the name of the pump so that we can place it in the text box on the instance. So this will be red pump. this will be green pump. And finally, blue pump. And now we'll open our faceplate screen. Notice the library is now open, so I can just drag and drop my faceplate directly onto the screen. We'll go to our properties interface, and you have to scroll up here. You're looking for the interface, and if it's closed, then you just need to expand it. But this is going to show you your property and tag interfaces. For each tag interface, we're just going to go hit our browser. I'm going to pick our red pump UDT. It's automatically only going to list the correct data types, in this case W string, so I'll assign that. If you recall, if we go to our tag table, we have put in for the start value red pump, so we don't really have to do anything. When we go into runtime, it should show red pump in the text. So for our strength, this is where we're going to go to our color UDT. So we'll just choose red, and that'll be our strength. And then for state, that's going to be in our red pump UDT, do state. And the component color, that's really just to kind of visually show, hey, this is red. And we're just going to pick the 255 version of that color, just so we have kind of a visual that, hey, this is a red pump, even if the strength is maybe down near 0 and it looks black. Now the strength color, we can set this to red, but what we really want to do is set the background of our circle to whatever shade is in the red strength of our color UDT. So if it's 17, it's going to look almost black. If it's 255, it's going to look like this. We can't just assign the tag to it because you've got your red, green, and blue components, and this is only the red component. So what we're going to have to do is get the value of our red strength tag for this particular pump and convert that to RGB and inject it into this property. So we're going to do a script, and I get to introduce you to the property context thread of scripting. So previously in this course, when we talked about scripting, it was the event context, and you could use your global definitions to define functions, define variables. This is another context, so you can't really share information between them. And the difference here is, since this is on a property, we have to do things a little bit differently. We have to go get the strength tag. Now notice that it already has this var value and return value. And there's also another button up here called trigger. So the way that this works is, in order for this script to run, it has to know when to run. So for this particular script, it needs to run only when the red tag changes value. So if somebody downloads a parameter set that changes the value of red, then of course we need to run this. So what we'll want to do is hit our trigger, and you can do different types of triggers. You can run this cyclically just based on time. You don't want to do that unless you absolutely have to, because it means your script is going to be running quite a bit and it can be a performance hit. So I tend to caution against that. We want to run on a tag, and the tag that we want to look at for this particular pump is going to be our red strength in our color UDT. So anytime it changes value, it'll just run this script. And then for our script, we need to go get the tag value. And so I'll just use our prompts here, and we can do tags, and I'll do Control J, and we'll go to our color UDT. We're going to get red, and we can just use value, and you can change the name of that. It's just kind of a suggestion, but you have to return a value. I'll explain why in a minute. But let's say that value is going to be the value of our red tag, but we have to convert that to RGB. So we can create a new variable called RGB val, and we can set it equal to HMI runtime dot math dot RGB. We've used this function quite a bit, and so the first value is your red component, and of course that's going to just be value because we just read that in. We're going to put 0 for the other components because, again, this is just the red pump. We only want the red shade. And then we can just return our RGB value. The reason we have a return value is the property is set by whatever you return here. So this has to be a valid color. So we're going to be returning a shade of red, and it's going to make our circle appear that exact shade of red. So I'll just do a syntax check. That looks okay. We'll hit save. And I want to just add an IO field here so we can just check if our state tag is working correctly. And since that's a UDT component, I can't really just drag and drop it out. So on our IO field under process value, I'll just assign our red pump state tag. So that way I should be able to change the value and it should flip the switch, or I should be able to flip the switch and it'll change the value. So let's go test all this out in runtime. So first we'll go over to parameter control, and I'm just going to go load something in that's got some red in it, and we'll download that to the process, and then we'll go to Faceplates. So you can see it does have the 255. The button says off. We're showing the red X, and this is a 0. So if we click this, it fires the on change event that we coded in the faceplate, and it writes to whatever tag we have assigned to that tag interface. Then of course it shows our green checkbox. Now if the process changes this tag, and again this is the state tag of our red pump, it goes to 0, and because the tag is hooked directly up to our alternative state, the button graphically shows that it's now off, which is a 0, and the visibility of our green check is 0, so we see what's behind it, which is our red X. We can just change our red right here, and so you can see 57 is pretty dark. Let's do something a little higher so you can see that it's actually showing the correct shade. If we go back over to parameter control, we can kind of play around with it. So if we change it here, we should see the same thing over here. So now it's your turn. If you haven't been following along with the video, then go ahead and create your user data types, graphics, and your color pump faceplate. So in the project library, add your graphics for your pump body and on and off state icons. Create your color pump UDT tag, and then create your new faceplate type and add the user interface. You'll need tag interfaces for name, which is going to be the pump name, strength, and state. You'll need property interfaces for your color component and color strength. Then, back on the visualization tab, assign your tag and property interfaces to the applicable UI components. Once you've finished assigning everything, then save and release your faceplate. So pause the video, complete this assignment, and then when you come back, we're going to do another assignment which will show you how to test out your faceplates on your faceplate screen. Now that you've created your faceplate, it's time to test it. Add your faceplate instant to your faceplate screen. Just drag it in from the library. Under the interfaces on the properties dialog of your faceplate instance, assign your tags and property values as shown. Feel free to go back and look at the video to see exactly what was done. Don't forget to add a script to the property context on the strength color dynamization. Add the script and then add your tag trigger, that's the alarm clock icon, so that the script runs when the color UDT red tag changes values. Then go to runtime and test everything out. After you complete this, go ahead and add your green and blue faceplate instances and test those out too. When you come back, I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the red pump and I'll place another one down here and one more below. So I'll go to my properties interface and find our interface here. So we're going to change our tags. So there's our green name, and then we will go to the green color strength and the green state tag, and then for our component we'll just set it to an appropriate shade of green so we can kind of tell what's going on. And then for our strength color, you don't really have to change this property value because your script is going to change it. But we need to do a couple of things here. We need to change this to our green tag, and then your green component is your middle one. And if you didn't remember that, then just replace your open parenthesis and it'll show you that it is the middle component. We'll just add a 0 and then we'll get rid of this middle 0. So you'll have a 0 red, then you have whatever's in the tag for your green component and 0 for your blue. That's all we really have to change there. Then of course we have to go into our trigger and you're going to change the trigger tag to the green strength and just click OK. And then go to your blue pump and make the same changes there. And we'll save this and check it out in Runtime. So we'll go to parameter control, we'll put some values here and go to Faceplates. Okay, so it looks like our names are working. If we change this to a low value, you can see that our shade is working. Try this guy out. Yep, that's working. On or off is working. I didn't add the tags for the power, but you can. In the next section, we're going to build this out and create a tank that shows our output color and have kind of a nice UI where we can use our faceplates.